Okay guys, so welcome to the next video. In this video we're going to tackle this sign-in page, which now works the same as the sign-up page, and as you can see we can use Google for example to authenticate, and once we actually authenticate we get redirected to this dashboard page and you see our secret over here. Well, this bold text over here is a protected text that we're getting from the backend, and the only way to actually get this data from the backend is if you're authenticated. So if I sign out for example and I try to go to the dashboard directly, you'll see that there is no way we get kicked back to the home page. And also this is the last video of the React part of this series, so if you want to learn how to do that, or you simply want to complete this series that you've started a long time ago, please watch this video. Okay guys, so let's get started. So the first thing that we could do is we could replicate this page for the sign in with slight changes of course. So I can open our source directory, components, and here we have this sign up, and now we'll do a bit of a magic really. We're going to select everything, copy, and come here and pretty much replace this, but we'll remember to rename it later to sign in. Okay. So now I'm going to simply change this to sign in, and also on the bottom I do have to change here as well, sign in, and the name that we're giving to this form inside of our Redux form, sign in as well. Okay, so now we need to see what we actually need to change. A lot of this is going to be the same. On submit, however, it's going to be a bit different. I'm also going to take this opportunity now to actually remove these comments. So we'll need to create a new action creator, which will be called something like sign in this time. For the Google, I can also get rid of this console log statements, and for the Facebook as well, but we don't need to change anything there because we just have like, let me just quickly check, but users, yes, we just have these two endpoints, and it actually checks whether this is like the first time you're visiting using this Google account or not inside of our passport.js. So this stays the same. We can change some text maybe here, so this is also okay. Sign in and sign in as well here. Okay, so let's quickly check how this looks like. Okay, great. So this should work. We just need to modify the left hand side. So for that we need to go on and create a new action creator. So I'm also going to pretty much copy paste this one because it's going to be really similar. So sign in this time. Okay, well, we can leave this comment here and like these as well, simply so we can follow the flow and make sure it's working. I believe that we can simply change this to sign in, but of course let's check that. So users sign in, yes, okay. And if I want to check what this validate body actually schema expects, I can go to these helpers, and then it's the same schema being used twice. So this should be also good. I can change this to sign in, and we can create a new type now, but everything else should be the same. Now the error is definitely not going to be email is already in use because we're trying to sign in. So we'll say email and password combination isn't valid, for example. Of course, like, I did this to keep this series a bit on the shorter side of things. You would really want to actually catch the Axios errors and then actually display it over here and not really like guess what this one should say. But with this done, let me quickly just change this to sign in and then copy this entire piece and then import it, even though it doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to go to these types and I'm going to copy this line, for example, and I'm going to change this to sign in. Okay, now in our reducers we also need to import that one, authentication, sign in, and then over here we can actually copy and paste the sign up piece because it's going to be really similar, and I'm going to change this to sign in. Okay, and before I forget, I also need to change it over here, so it should say authentication sign in. Okay, so now if I come here to this sign in page, pretty much everything should be working. So for example, let's see if we can sign in using an account that doesn't exist. Okay, so for example, my name at gmail.com, test123. If I click sign in, we get this error. So everything is working so far. Then if I go to the sign up page and I actually create this account, my name at gmail.com, password test123, sign up. So okay, but we just use sign up, so that's not interesting in this episode. So now if I try to use my name and test123 to just like log in, it works, which is great. And if I sign out, it works. If I come to the sign in, go to the Google, it works. By the way, what I've noticed is like since last video, I don't seem to run into that like iframe issue anymore. So I'm not sure if I'm just being lucky in that regards or if something changed on like the Google send. But like as you can see, it definitely works right now, and here it works, and like I can try it again, it works, and like again, like I couldn't do this in the last video, like pretty much it would like fail every other time, so perhaps it's fixed. And okay, so with this done, our sign-in page is completely working, our sign-up page is working since last episode, but the issue right now is that we have this dashboard over here, this link to the dashboard, and it allows unauthenticated users to visit it. As you can tell, I'm not authenticated right now, and like furthermore, like even if it didn't exist really here, like even if we hid it, users could still come here and directly type /dashboard and come to that page. So we're going to fix that next. Okay, so to fix that, we're going to create a higher order component, and we're going to call it like authentication guard or something like that. But the main idea is like, okay, here is our user right here, and he or she tries to visit a protected route, for example, our dashboard route. We will have this higher order component that will wrap that dashboard route or any other route that you want only authenticated users to see, and that higher order component will pretty much ask whether this user is authenticated, and if he or she is authenticated, this higher order component will simply grant access to whatever component it is currently like wrapping around. And if user isn't authenticated, this higher order component won't really allow you to visit that component, but will just like redirect you somewhere. And of course, it is in our hands to decide where this redirect should end up. So this really isn't that tough. I mean, the logic should make sense. You can almost like imagine some like guard standing in front of some door and like checking your ID before he is letting you in or not. So we're going to do that in React, and it shouldn't be too difficult. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to create a new folder inside of the components folder, and I'm going to name it like HOCS, which stands for higher order components, like plural, because you could end up having more of them. So, and then for this one in particular, I'm going to like call it authentication guard.js. Of course, you're free to name it whatever you prefer. Now, the start is going to be pretty much similar to what we have been doing. So I'm going to import React, and I'm going to import a component from React. And then what I want to do is I want to export a function. So I'm going to say export default some function. So we'll have an arrow function over here. Okay, so now this function will simply receive over here as an argument a component that it's trying to protect. So we can say something like original component, and I'm using the first letter uppercase because this is a component. so it's only because of that. And then we do something over here. Okay, so now what we do over here is kind of weird the first time you see it around, but then it's like that boilerplate code that you end up using over and over again, and you get used to it. So it's similar to like when you first seen that Redux connection, and now you're probably like used to it. Okay, so over here we need to create a new class. So I'm going to say class, I'm going to say mixed component, and I'll explain why. Extends, pretty much the usual component. Okay, and then we'll have render, and that render is simply going to return whatever this original component is. So we can say original component and simply close it like this, semicolon over here. If you imagine like you calling this function over here, it currently doesn't return anything. It does create this class, but that class is really only there for as long as this function is executing, and then when it's done executing, like you don't have any handle on it. So we need to return this new class over here before we actually exit this function. So I'm simply going to say return mixed component. Okay, so now if you can maybe visualize this, let's say that we have our dashboard, right? So like the dashboard is our component that is being rendered on slash dashboard. Okay, and now we want to protect this dashboard route with this higher order component. So what we're actually doing is this dashboard equals this original component, and this authentication guard pretty much takes this dashboard, does something with it. I mean, it currently doesn't, but like over here it can do some stuff with it, and then it will return this dashboard back to the caller. So it is almost like you're wrapping this dashboard with this authentication guard, and like you're calling this function, which this is a function, and you're passing this component over here. And I just want to prove this to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to leave this unchanged, and then I'm going to come to this index.js file over here, and as you can see, we are defining this route slash dashboard, and then we're inputting this component. Well, what we can do is we can actually get a handle on our authentication guard over here. So I'm going to say import authentication guard from components slash higher order components slash authentication guard. And then I can simply wrap it up like this, authentication guard. Okay, and now if I come back to our application and I click on the dashboard and I like refresh it, you see nothing is really changed because our higher order component didn't do any modifications yet, but it will. It is important that now it is aware of this original component. We're trying to do something with it. So what we want to do is we want to check whether the user is authenticated. Now there are two lifecycle methods that are of importance to us. We have component did mount, which means it just got rendered, and we have component did update, which means component just got updated. So we want to make sure to cover both of those cases with that authentication check. So over here, I'm going to define those two lifecycle methods that React provides for us. So component did mount is the first one, and the second one is component did update, this one. Okay, now pretty much we need to check here whether the user is authenticated in both places. And if you have been following along, you know that we can check that by getting access to that authentication slice of our Redux store, and then pretty much check whether the is authenticated property is set to true, and for example whether the token is there as well. So we can do that. Now to do that, we again need to make that connection with Redux. So on top, I'm going to import connect from React Redux, And then over here, before I actually just return this mixed component, I need to use disconnect. I mean, you've seen it in the past, so I hope this isn't like anything new. So we have this connect function over here, and we have two arguments. If you remember, the first argument is all about getting access to the store, and the second argument is all about actions. However, we really don't care about any actions right now, so we just need that map state to props function, if you remember. So for example, in the sign up, if I scroll down, you'll see this function map state to props, and you see how it's defined here. We did have two arguments over here because we needed both, but if you just need the first one, you can just do this. But if you just need the second one, you still need to make this first one null. Okay, so back over here, I need to define this function map state to props, and then I need to pass in the state, and then over here I'm going to simply return let's say is authenticated, and it is in our state authentication is authenticated. I'm going to make this a bit shorter, is authenticated, and for example, for a good measure, we can also check whether the JWT token is in store. So I'm going to say JWT token state authentication JWT token. Let me just check if that's how okay, it's just token. So token. Okay, so now that we have this, we can pass this over here, and then inside of these two lifecycle methods, we do have access to both of these values as a props. So over here, we can, for example, say if this dot props dot is authenticated and this dot props dot JWT token exists, then we can console log all is good, user entrance is allowed, something like this. And then I'm going to copy this and paste here as well, and then we can actually check what is happening over here. So if and before I do that, let me also put an else statement and say console.log user isn't authenticated, decline access or something like that. The wording isn't really important, but anyway, let's see if this works. Okay, so if I'm here and I do a refresh, you see that user isn't authenticated, decline access, and if I sign in and I get redirected to this dashboard page, you see that all is good, user's entrance is allowed. Okay, great, so this is working. Now what we want to do is, in this case really, in this like else branch, we want to redirect a user back to somewhere. So like if user is authenticated, let's redirect. So we're going to do the same thing we did over here, just to remind you. So see, we're going to say this.props.history.push and then whatever route you want to redirect user to. So we'll say this.props.history push, and let's redirect him or her on a home page, for example. And I'm going to copy this as well over here, and then let's see what happens. So if I come back over here and I make a refresh, okay, well, all is good because I am signed in. If I sign out and I go to the dashboard, user is authenticated, decline access, and we got redirected to our home page. Okay, great. So it's working right now. And as you can see, you cannot go to this dashboard page. Even if I try to do it like this, you see I instantly get kicked back. Now there are a couple of improvements. Okay, so first improvement that we can do is we can get rid of this else statement altogether and simply negate this first if statement over here. So we'll say if the user isn't authenticated and the JWT token doesn't exist, so if those two aren't met, then we're going to do this. We can get rid of this. So see how much nicer this is compared to this over here. So I'm going to replace this with this again, and the functionality will be the same. I cannot access it. Okay, second improvement that we can do is we can extract, because these two pieces of code are the same, we can create a new function. Let's call it, for example, check authentication, like this, and then we can simply cut that over here, and then inside of those two lifecycle methods you can simply call that function like this, and it should work the same. So if I refresh and I go to the dashboard, you can see the same thing happening. Okay, and before we leave, we need to make one small adjustment. Before we actually return the original component, we also want to return along the original component all the props that it received along the way. And to do that, you simply use this neat ES6 JavaScript syntax. You put 3 dots, and then you pretty much type this.prop. So it will mean it will expand this .props and it will put it over here like whatever it currently contains. It's similar really to what we're doing over here. So we are saying like use the state as is currently, and then we do some modifications over here. But over here we don't want to do any modifications, so we just want to like carry that along. And now if I save this, this should still work the same. Okay, so next we need to do one more thing, and then this entire series is over, believe it or not. So now if I sign in and I am on this dashboard component, well, if you remember, I promised you that we actually want to display here, let me just find it, we want to display there this secret over here. So pretty much we want to display the resource text, but that's not the point. The point is that we're actually pulling something from the backend, and this is also protected resource in our backend. As you can tell, it actually checks for that JWT token beforehand. So we need to do the following. We need to create a new action creator over here. So we can say something like, let's say export const dashboard, or like get secret. Okay, and then what will happen, this get secret will return dispatch. Okay, and that dispatch actually need to be async because we want to use Axios over here. So we're going to say let's say console.log and let's say action creator trying to get backend's secret, and we're going to say const response await Axios dot get, I believe, I'll check, http://localhost 5000 slash just secret, I think. Let me check, and let me also close all of these. Secret, okay, but it is like /user/secret, so /users/secret, and then I'm simply going to say console.log response, and I'm also going to say try catch. So try catch error. Okay, so this should be good, and we miss this closing squiggly brace, and in this case of this error, for now let's say console.error error, and then simply display it out. Okay, so we have this get secret, and I'm going to actually come to this dashboard, and over here what we want to do is we need that lifecycle method that you've just seen, component did mount. And when that happens, we want to actually call this getSecret action creator. So to do that, we again need to connect it with Redux. So let's do that next. So over here, I'm going to import connect from React Redux, and I'm also going to import everything as actions from, and then I need to navigate, I need to go back one directory, actions, and that's it. Then over here I need to change the export default, so I want to export default on the bottom, not over here. Then I can say export default connect and wrap it around the dashboard, and this connect I'll say null as a first argument, and I'm going to say actions as a second argument. So now we have these actions in our this.props. So I'm going to say this.props.getSecret. Now getSecret is async function, so I'm going to say async component did mount, and let's simply see what's going to happen now. So if I open this and I refresh this, okay, you see that it actually tried to grab that secret for us, but the backend responded with 401 unauthorized, and that is exactly what should have happened, because this Axios of ours currently over here, because this Axios right here isn't using our JWT token, and if you remember, we need to use it as a header, and that's not happening over here. So even though the React is aware of JWT token and it knows that we're authenticated, when the backend receives this request from the React, it doesn't know that we're authenticated, so we need to include JWT token inside of this request over here. So let's fix that. So what we need to do is, in this index.js file, we can actually set some default behavior for Axios, and the default behavior that we're looking for is to attach that authorization header for all the Axios requests that we do for the lifecycle of this entire application. So we need to actually import Axios over here, import Axios from Axios, and then, for example, once we grab this JWT token from the local storage over here, what we can do is actually use this Axios, and it has this defaults.headers.common like this, and then you specify the header name. Well, the header name that our backend expects is authorization like this, and then we simply need to make sure that its value is this JWT token over here. So JWT token, and with just like those two lines, if I get back here, well, it did like auto refresh, so you can already see that we don't have any errors, but like if I refresh it myself, you see that the backend successfully responded with this secret. Okay, so the only thing that is left for us is to actually display that secret on this page. So what we can do is we can actually dispatch something over here, so we can actually steal a bit of code from here. We can say something like dispatch, and then as a type we can say dashboard get data, for example, and as a payload we can say response data resource. I need to check this really quickly. Oh, secret. Okay, secret is the key. So secret. And now what we need to do is we need to create this new type. So I'm going to say types. I'm going to say over here export const this equals this, and I also need to import it over here on the top. Like, I'll also do some cleaning over here, so I'm going to say it like this. Okay, I need to do the same in our reducer. Now this really isn't authentication reducer, so we're going to create a new reducer. I'm just going to fix this as well. Okay, so we're going to create a new reducer. We're going to call it dashboards.js. I am, however, going to copy all of this, and then what I need to do is I just need to import this one type over here. So I just wanted that and nothing else. Okay, now the default state for a dashboard is going to be simply like secret, and it's going to be false. It's going to be, sorry, empty by default, and we have nothing else. And then over here our only type is going to be this one. I'm going to get rid of everything else. I'm also going to get rid of this, and we're returning back state as is, and we're just modifying the secret with the action.payload. We're also getting rid of all of this. Okay, and then we need to connect that reducer. So I'm going to say import dashboard reducer from /dashboard, and then I'm going to simply say over here dash. Well, I'll use dash just so that I stay consistent with these 4-letter names, but you can use dashboard, and it is going to be dashboard reducer like this. Okay, so now back inside our dashboard component, we need to use that map state to props function once again. So I'm going to come over here, say function map state to props. It will get access to our state, and we want to return a secret, yes, which is stored in state dash dot secret, and we need to put it inside of here. And then when we rendered it over here, we can say our secret, and then we can say, for example, h3 tags, and we can say this.props.secret. Now let's see if we did everything right. So if I come back over here, and you can already see, but let's fix it a bit. Okay, fair enough. So our secret that we got from our backend, which is this text literal called resource, is now successfully shown on the dashboard page. And if you're signed out, you go to the dashboard, you get kicked back. And if you're like creative enough and you want to type it directly, you still get kicked back. And now this won't even work as well. Before we actually finish with this video, I noticed one problem with this currently. So I'm not signing currently, and as you can see, this dashboard successfully triggered this, and it actually still kinda remembered our JWT token. So in order to fix that, what we need to do is we need to do something similar to this, but in our actions. So then what we can do is, like, when we sign out over here, we can set this to equal nothing like this. And what you can also do is you can actually put this once you sign in. So not only do we save this, but we also set this to res.data.token, and I'm going to copy this and paste over here as well, and for the Facebook as well, and for the Google as well. So we cover all the cases. Now once this is refreshed, let's test it out. So I'm on the home page, everything is fine. I go to the dashboard. You see that this call to this endpoint that contains some protected resource cannot be fired because we're not signed in. So the higher order component protects like the view layer, if you will, and the actual backend requirement that user must be signed in before we like send you this data is what actually really keeps your data safe, I'd say. So now if I sign in, this is working. If I sign out, and then if I go to the dashboard, you see that this Axios no longer remembers our JWT token. Okay guys, so this is the end of this video and the end of this React part. Like I said in the beginning, the React part was like promised to you, but when it comes to the Vue.js and the Angular parts, I will try to produce them. However, I cannot say when that will happen. So for now though, I just want to play out this bit for you guys. So this is the entire series that you hopefully watched, played 150 times the speed. So just for the fun of it, I wanted to see it in this way and to see like what things we had to overcome thus far. If you're curious about some facts, this series so far is 7 hours, 42 minutes and 14 seconds or so long, depending on how long this video will end up being in the end. It's been great having you guys throughout this journey. I learned a lot as a new YouTube channel. This series really took a lot of efforts to make because it was so long and it was so in-depth. I will try to think of some other series that I could do next. If you have any suggestions, please leave them down below in the comments. I read and I try to reply to every comment, but sometimes time isn't on my side, unfortunately. And just for the fun of it, I will let this play out until the end, so that you can enjoy these nearly 8 hours compressed into 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So guys, thank you so much for watching this till the end. If you like this video, please give a like. If you have watched the entire series and you enjoyed it, please subscribe if you didn't already. And let me know down in the comments what you would like to learn and watch next. Thanks again guys, and I'll see you in some of the next videos. Please enjoy this video until the end.